When you get married, there are several economic advantages to being married, right? You sometimes will have additional income coming into the household. You'll get to save costs because you have help in the marketplace now. You can get tax breaks. There's a lot of economic advantages to being married. But if that was the sole reason that you got married, or the primary reason you got married, you're guaranteed to be miserable. I can tell you right now, you are going to be miserable if that's the main reason that you got married. And it's no different when it comes to a house, right? When you are going to purchase a home, an investment, the economic advantages are important, but that can't be the main reason why you buy that home. And that shouldn't be the main factor around where you decide to buy a home, right? Welcome to the Home Goals Podcast, the ultimate guide for turning your home goals into a reality. I'm your host, Derek Thornton. Join us as we navigate the twists and turns of obtaining a home. We'll be offering expert tips, helping you avoid pitfalls, and championing your journey towards that cherished place to call home. In today's episode, we'll be answering the question, where is the best place to buy a home? It's a question that you have likely asked yourself before and tried to determine, okay, how do I even go about answering this? Who should I ask? Where should I look? We'll be talking about a lot of different things you'll want to keep in mind in finding the best place for you to live. The first place that we'll start before we even get into the nuts and bolts of answering that question is the most important rule or concept when it comes to real estate, and that is location, location, location. You've heard it likely before, but again, that is something that always needs to be present in your mind. It doesn't need to be the main thing, but it's the reason why you could take a house that is $100,000 in the middle of nowhere, a little small, tiny home. If you picked it up and plopped it right next to the beach, magically it turns into a $500,000 property that people are vying for. The reason that happens is because of the location, right? That is the most important thing, and it's one of the more difficult things to change after you buy. We talked in a past episode about finding houses that are most of what you want, a few things that you can change, and a few things you can learn to live with. Location is one of those things where you can't change it, right? You have to be happy with where it is and understanding what works best for your situation. And so we'll talk about things that you'll want to consider or keep in mind when you're going through that process. We'll talk about it from a realtor's perspective, but also from a homeowner's perspective as well. Those two perspectives are often going to be different. Your realtor is often looking at the home from a purchase and a sale standpoint. And that's how you want your realtor to be viewing the home. You want them to be looking at the best way for you to be able to eventually sell that home one day, because experience shows that that's likely what you will be doing at some point. That doesn't need to be your primary concern up front, but it is something that does need to be on your mind. And a realtor is a great person to be thinking of that while you're trying to figure out all the other factors that go into you determining what's the best place for you to live. The homeowner should never view their home solely as an asset or as an investment. Even though oftentimes it is people's largest asset, that's never the way that you should look at that home solely, right? Especially if it's your primary residence, that's the place that determines so much of what you do in your life, right? It's where you lay your head at night. It's where you feel your comfort. It's where you feel peace, hopefully. It is where you determine the friends that you have, the people that you meet, the restaurants that you eat at, the stores you go to. All that is sourced from wherever you live. And so there's so much more that goes into it than just determining how much did I buy it for and how much can I sell it for. There's more to it that goes into that. You think of marriage, right? When you get married, there are several economic advantages to being married, right? You sometimes will have additional income coming into the household. You'll get to save costs because you have help in the marketplace now. You can get tax breaks. There's a lot of economic advantages to being married. But if that was the sole reason that you got married, or the primary reason you got married, you're guaranteed to be miserable. I can tell you right now, you are going to be miserable if that's the main reason that you got married. And it's no different when it comes to a house, right? When you are going to purchase a home, an investment, the economic advantages are important, But that can't be the main reason why you buy that home. And that shouldn't be the main factor around where you decide to buy a home, right? And so that's one thing that you need to keep in mind and understanding your perspective in the way that you're looking at approaching the location that works best for your situation. We'll look at location from an investment standpoint first and foremost, right? So again, the realtor is kind of more focused on this, or should be more focused on this than you as the homeowner. But one of the number one questions that we're always looking at is the resale potential for this property, right? When you're determining where's the best place to buy a home, you're also asking the question, where's the best place to sell a home, right? Because that's what you're ultimately determining. The average person stays in the home between 5 to 7 years. And so I want to know, okay, if I need to go up sell this place, what is my experience going to be like? Is it going to be easy? Is it going to be very difficult? How do I prepare for that? What's the best way for me to know? I think of it like those 90s sitcoms we used to always watch growing up, where the show would always end, or the series would always end, I should say, where the main character or several other characters would be getting a dream job offer or a dream opportunity that always led to them moving, right? That's how all those shows ended. They would get moved across the country or somewhere else, and it was like, oh man, we're so happy we get to move off to this new area. And one thing they rarely talked about is the difficulty of trying to sell a home, or depending on what the market is doing in that time or whatever. And so you need to look at it as, when you're going to purchase a home, if I'm the main character of this sitcom called My Life, what is this experience going to be like if I get that dream job offer, that dream opportunity to go up and move across the country? What is it going to look like for me to make that happen? Is it going to be difficult? Is it going to cost me time? Am I going to be forced to rent this out? What is my resale potential going to look like? And then also you need to factor in not only the neighborhood, but again, the resale versus new construction house dilemma that you may be dealing with as well. So if you're buying new construction, not every time, but in most cases, new construction tends to build or appreciate at a slower rate than resale homes in established neighborhoods, especially if that new construction home is in a community that is still being built, right? And so if you, let's say a couple years from now, need to sell, are you going to be competing with all these other homeowners, or all these other new homes that are being built? And if so, that's going to make things a little more difficult on you. Even if your home is in excellent condition, or likely is, because it's only a couple years old, you're still going to be competing with brand new, which is going to be difficult. And so these are all factors that you need to take into consideration when you're trying to determine where's the best place for you to buy. You also need to look at the average appreciation rates for that neighborhood. This is sometimes it's a little difficult depending on what's happening in the market, right? When you had the Great Recession, where we had homes dropping in value at historic rates, or if you looked at 21-22 a couple years ago, we had homes rising at historic rates. And so those are outliers that you kind of have to boot out. But in normal times, whatever, you want to see, okay, what are the highest performing neighborhoods in this area? Before the market kind of went haywire in our area, we were seeing like maybe 3 or 4% or something was about normal for a lot of neighborhoods. And if you were at like 6 or 7%, you were considered an extremely popular neighborhood. If you were seeing that kind of year over year appreciation in your home's value, you were a very popular neighborhood. And so those are things that will help give you some clues or insights into how these homes perform. It also helps you determine, okay, how protected is this neighborhood from market conditions or market downturns? If things go haywire in the market and things are looking really bad and houses are starting to foreclose or short sale, is this neighborhood going to be less impacted because they've had such high performing rates than everyone else? That's one of the questions that you want to learn from that average appreciation, so you kind of brace yourself and understand what type of situation that you're going to be getting into. You also want to look at future developments and say, like, okay, are there new companies, new businesses, new opportunities that are coming into this area and moving nearby? And how is that going to impact my value? In some cases, it may positively impact it. Some cases, it may be negative, right? And so in our area, an example, we have a major highway called 540 that has been built or being built and extended, and the plans to finish it off, there was a lot of different plans that have been in place. It's been years. I feel like ever since I got my license 10 years ago, we've been talking about this, and it still isn't finished. But they have a lot of plans that they were working on, and they had all these different routes they could take, and we were trying to determine, okay, if they go this way, it may take out several houses in the neighborhood. If they go this way, it may avoid some. And for years, we didn't know which route they were going to choose. And then when they did finally select the route, now we have a better idea and we can let people know. But again, you want to have an idea of that. Like I said, if there is a potential of something coming in and causing a lot of harm or negatively impacting your value in the way that it's situated, you want to make sure that you're doing your research ahead of time and understanding that. And so, again, location from an investment standpoint is always something that should be important to you. But I would recommend that you let your realtor worry more about that, and then you focus on the other options as far as like the way that it impacts your life and the way that you are living and going about your everyday world. You also want to look at the location from a lot placement or the lot condition. Every house is different in some way, and every lot is different from one another. There are no two houses, no two plots of land in this world that are exactly alike. Every single one of them is different. Right. You may have a different soil makeup. You might have one lot that has more rocks than others, one that has a higher clay content. It could be any number of things, but there are no two lots that are exactly alike, which is why you want to make sure that you also have a firm grasp and understanding of not only where in a certain area you're buying, but what that lot looks like in that area. Right. So you may say, hey, I picked this neighborhood because it has a very high performing appreciation, but there's only one home that's available and the lot is a little bit different, right? Like, let's say it backs up to a major road and it's really noisy, or the backyard cuts off abruptly. It has a steep drop off. And so your backyard is almost non-existent where everybody else has a nice, plush, flat half-acre lot. Or it could be a situation where you have a really steep driveway on that lot where it feels like you're climbing Mount Kilimanjaro just to get up to the front door. Any of those things could be a turnoff. And so even though it is in a wonderful neighborhood that is high performing in terms of value, your house, if it has some of those defects or kind of issues with the lot, it may not perform as well as everyone else in the neighborhood. And so those are things you need to keep in mind as well, is that you can't just look at the area and say, as long as I buy in here, I'm protected from any market issues or market conditions. You want to make sure that, again, even in those areas or in those hot pockets where values are rising at a higher rate, you want to make sure that your house is still going to have the best chance for success when you go to sell. And then last, of course, you also want to think about it from a lifestyle standpoint. Again, so much of what you do in your life revolves around where you live. And so you want to make sure that all the things that you enjoy are nearby or as nearby as they can be. You want to make sure that you have access to the different things that are going to be important, right? Gas stations, grocery stores, all those things that are basic necessities. And in addition to that, you also want to look at, okay, what are the things that I like to do? Every time I have a buyer client fill out a questionnaire, one of the questions I'm always asking them is like, hey, what are your hobbies? What do you like to do for fun? That is going to dictate or should help dictate what may be the best option for you moving forward and determining the places that you want to buy or sell. And so let's look at it from a lifestyle standpoint and say, hey, excuse me, am I going to be happy with living in this house or living in this community based on the things that I'm nearby, the things that are close to me, and can I make that happen? Those are always things that you need to be keeping in mind. Ultimately, you need to determine what is most important to you. And I say this as a realtor because this is one issue that I often have with the way that realtors work in our business and the way that we are trying to help our clients determine the best place for them to buy or sell. When it comes to realtors, there is a long-standing history, and not a positive history, but there's a long-standing history with issues revolving around what we call in the industry steering. Steering, if you haven't heard of it, not like steering like driving a car, but steering in real estate is referring to the illegal practice of directing or guiding a particular home buyer either to or away from a particular neighborhood based on characteristics that are protected classes. Right. So a protected class, we have what we call fair housing laws. And these are federal laws that span the entire country. And these laws were put in place to protect these protected classes. And those classes are anything from race, creed, origin, nationality, religion, sex, familial status, handicap status, like all those are protected classes. And so if you are steering someone or guiding or directing someone to or away from a particular area because of one of those characteristics showing up in a particular area or in a home, that is an illegal practice called steering. Most of the time we think of it from one of the more blatant violations that happen in the real estate industry, which is from a racial standpoint. Right, you think of it like if a realtor directs a white family away from a particular neighborhood because there's more black residents that live there than normal, or if vice versa, right? If they direct a black family away from a majority white neighborhood or whatever, like any of those protected classes, whatever. When you're trying to guide or direct someone based on those protected classes, that is an illegal practice called steering. So those are the more blatant violations that are out there, but there are some violations that happen that people don't even realize is a violation. One of the most common ones is familial status. Right, you'll see a lot of times where people will say, "Oh, this is or a realtor will try to sell a house by saying, "Oh, this is a great family neighborhood," or "This is a wonderful place for families to live." That may sound innocent, but based on these protected classes, you're essentially discriminating against people who don't have a family, right? And so those are things that people are trying to make, or we're trying to clean up in the industry and make sure that realtors are not pushing people towards or from certain areas, that we are allowing them to make the decision that works best for their situation. But the reason I brought that all up is because although we are actively working to make sure that we're not steering or practicing any illegal activities, at the end of the day, there are some blatant ways that you can steer, but there are also some ways that people steer and don't even realize it. It's almost like when you think of an unbiased jury. Right, like it almost sounds like an oxymoron. Right? It's difficult to think that there would ever be any jury that you could put together in the country that would have people who are 100% unbiased. We all have some level of bias on some things. Trying to find a group of people, let alone just one person, is very difficult to find people who don't have some level of bias, whether they realize it or not. And in many cases, realtors and people just in general, we tend to create our own version of an ideal world, right? We create our own bubbles, right? Once we just land on a place that we want to live, we hang out with a bunch of people. We create friend groups, right? We hang out with people who think like us, who act like us, who tend to have the same beliefs as us. We find a place of worship where people are worshiping the same things that we do. We may say, hey, I like to work out, and so I'm going to go to this particular place, right? We create our own ideal worlds, or our own kind of bubble of places that incorporates all the things that we enjoy, or the things that make us comfortable. Right. That's just something that all of us do. Realtors, regular people, anybody that is out in the world that's living in a home is trying to create their own ideal world or their own ideal bubble. And it's very easy for us to get into a situation where that's all we know and that's all we can really speak to. Right. I know some people who have lived in a town for 20, 30 years and have never set foot in a town that is 30 minutes away. Right. And I think of the Triangle area. Right. We have a town outside of Raleigh, about maybe a half hour or so outside of Raleigh, called Holly Springs. I know people who have lived in Raleigh all their lives and have never set foot in Holly Springs because everything they need is in their little bubble. It's in their little world. They don't have a reason or a need to ever go to Holly Springs. And so they're fine and content living in their bubble, right? And so you need to keep that in mind whenever you are asking anyone, realtor or not, if you're asking family, friends, anyone, where's the best place to live or where's the best place for me to buy? You have to understand that more times than not, they are going to be answering that question based on their bubble, based on their ideal world. All right, here's the best places to go shop. Here's the best place to go eat. They haven't set foot in an area that may be best for you. Right. Holly Springs could be the best place for you to live, but you'll never know that if you're only talking to people who live their entire lives in Raleigh. Right? And so those are things that you need to make sure that you are keeping in mind anytime you're asking anyone for advice. You need to make sure you ask a variety of people. What do they think about where they live? What's the best options for them? What things do they enjoy? And would you enjoy those things as well? Because again, although the investment aspect of it is important, that can't be the main reason why you decide where you need to buy or sell. It needs to revolve around what works best for you, what area speaks to you, what area is the ideal situation for you to build a life and find a place that's comfortable to find home, right? So do your research. Talk to people, interview people, go online and look up different options that are out there. Use your realtor as a resource because, again, even though realtors kind of focus more so on a investment standpoint, we still are constantly traveling to all of these different towns and working with a multitude of different people from different backgrounds. And so over time, we get to get a feel or an idea of what people are enjoying or what you may enjoy as well. And so use those resources to your benefit and figure out the best place for you to buy a home. So I hope that that was helpful for you, gave you some things to think about and consider in moving forward. I am always happy to talk further with anyone about any of these items and determining what works best for you. And then next week, we've got some exciting topics coming up for you all. But as always, feel free to send me any topics that you want me to discuss in future episodes. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Happy Memorial Day. Thank you to all of the individuals who have sacrificed for our country and paid the ultimate price. We honor you on this Memorial Day, and I hope that you all who have family members that may have been lost in battle, that you take the time to reflect on them, honor their memory, and that they feel celebrated today. And so thank you again for the service and sacrifice of all of our military individuals, and I pray that all of you have a safe and happy Memorial Day. I'll talk to you all next week. Have a good one.